Hello, welcome to All in Motion. I'm your host, Jake. Welcome to episode number 72, My Driver in Afghanistan. Very happy we finally made this episode happen. Our next guest is a former Marine, and he also served over 15 years in the Army National Guard. He also is a correction officer and has a beautiful family. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald McGill.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. What do
Hello,
you mean? We,
everybody.
we know each
No,
other.
no, I'm saying hello to everybody. Nice to meet you guys.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, man. Hey, good to see you. Good to hear from you. Hey, so before we get into it, a quick little introduction of yourself, who you are, where you're from, what's going on with you in your life.
Okay, my name is Donald McGill. I was in the military for 20 years. That's Marine Corps and National Guard. I retired. I've been a correction officer for 21 and a half years. Yeah. Married, kids. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
You were in the Marine Corps before Army National Guard?
95, 99.
Oh, do you mind sharing a little about that?
Out of high school, I knew I was partying and having a good time when I was a kid. And I knew I had to make a decision on what I was going to do. I remember fondly hanging out with some of my boys and we were drinking, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I told them, like, yo, I'm joining the Marine Corps. And my one buddy just starts laughing, just laughing. And everybody's laughing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm joining the Marine Corps. And they're laughing. I'm laughing too. And some of the roughest times during boot camp, I just remember my boys like, "You're not joining." He actually helped me make it through the boot camp because let me tell you, there were some rough times.
That's
So,
funny. I've heard all kinds of stories with guys in the Marine Corps. Different, not bad, but just interesting stories.
uh-huh. Yeah, I definitely have some. I have some funny stories about boot camp. That's for sure. I met my cousin in boot camp. You want to hear that real quick?
Absolutely,
Real
go
quick.
ahead. Absolutely, go ahead.
All right. So my father at the time, he was rekindling with our family from down south, I think Virginia. I was in boot camp at the time, but I guess he was telling the cousins that, oh, my son's in the Marine Corps. And they're like, really? He's in boot camp? Oh, really? So long story short, senior drill instructor comes out to me and says, "Recruit McGill, report to senior drill instructor's office." So I'm like, oh man, I'm in the shower. Wow, what do I do now? So I'm in the shower, I got the towel around me. I go to the drill instructor's door. I hit the door 3 times. "Recruit McGill, request permission to speak to senior drill instructor, Sergeant so, sir." He's like, "Come in." So I step in, I'm at attention, and there's a senior drill instructor sitting down and this really big guy in the corner. So I'm looking at my senior drill instructor. My eyes veer over to the big guy, and he goes, "What the hell are you looking?" He just flips out. I'm like, "Oh man, I'm in trouble. Like, what did I do?" So I'm standing there, 130, 40, 50 pounds, whatever, soaking wet. And this big guy, after he's done drilling me, he starts talking to me. He starts talking about my father and stuff like that. I'm thinking, well, what is this guy? And then he tells me he's my cousin. I'm like, it's like, that's a heck of a way to meet your cousin. And he just gave me a boost. Hey, talk to your senior drill instructor. He said, "You're just sliding through. You're staying real low key and just sliding through." I wanted to tell him, yeah, that was a plan. That's how I met my cousin.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I grew up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Luzerne County, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I lived in a lot of places, but I lived in Boston, Connecticut, Ohio, New York. But after 6 years old, that's majority of my life. I mean, 40 something years. So I'm 49 now. So 43 years I've been in Wilkes-Barre. So that's what I know.
That's awesome. So in the Marine Corps, grew up in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, the vibe, like coming from the Marine Corps to the National Guard, it's a drastic. Even though our units were by far like they were tight, they were good at what they did. The Marine Corps is just totally different. Like, so I'm like, once 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out the year, I'm like, I could do this. These guys are just hanging out. Later on, I'm kind of, I'm glad that I did join the Guard because not only did it help me many different ways, but networking, we had stadies, that's how I got into corrections. We had lawyers, we had all types of people in the Guard. And if you join the Guard, you can really network. So I'm glad that that happened. I joined the Guard.
That's awesome, man. And appreciate you sharing that experience.
Thank you, bud.
D and I became friends out of Fort Bragg. I want to say once we hit country in Afghanistan, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So just to keep a timeline in place, we're speaking, and this episode is about my driver in Afghanistan. I know you have a lot of cool, interesting stories, and I'm glad that we can make this happen. End of 2007, you get word, you find out potentially units going to be deployed to Afghanistan. Where were you at? What was going on? What went through your mind?
Asked for volunteers from our unit. They asked for volunteers. At the time, I was going through a divorce, an ugly divorce, and I just wanted to get away. Like I'm like, you know what? Let me just go over there. And I knew that my time was coming. Like I was over the hump. I said, this will be my last hurrah. Let's see what it's all about. Get away, get my mind right. I don't have to worry about anything at home. I can concentrate on one thing, and that was there. I volunteered to go to Afghanistan. I was probably one of the last people in our unit. That's why I got separated from my unit and got put in with your unit. In fact, I think I was the last person to actually get in. How I became part of the 103rd.
Train up at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, correct?
Oh yeah, that was a mess.
What well, we'll get into that. Yeah, it is funny. What was that experience like doing a mob out of Fort Bragg? Being because everybody that does not know, it's home of the 82nd Airborne Division and some other units that are also stationed there. But going through MOB, they had a mock-up FOB. For people that don't know, a FOB is a forward operating base, right? And it's a mock-up. It was to prepare you for living on a FOB and then going out and doing particular type of missions. You want to fill in there, D?
I think Bragg's it's a good place, but they weren't ready for us as the Guard, and I think because they full-time officers is it was their concern. They set up for us, but they really didn't really set up for us. They didn't really have much space for us. We trained heavy rain, through rain, standing out there.
Snow. There was snow on the ground.
Okay, I was going to say I wasn't sure. Rain, sleet, and snow. We trained through it all, and we stood out there a lot longer than we should have. If you remember correctly, if it wasn't for some people getting word back to people at home, they kept us out. Like we were only supposed to be out there maybe a month and a half. We were out there for like 3 months. We were out there for some ridiculous amount of time. So we were taking cold showers. Remember taking cold showers?
You had to walk there. You had to walk there from your tent. And when the time you got there, there was a line.
So, I think it was a holiday. We came back and we were supposed to, the food and stuff like that. They had no food for us. They really didn't have. They weren't really prepared for us. You know what? I guess in their overall, that must have got us ready because everything they told us we would be doing. If you remember, as soon as we got off that plane,
that all changed. That all changed. So we trained out at Fort Bragg to do a PRT mission, and that was provincial reconstruction team. That was the mission. And ours, we had different units. Ours was a Air Force unit, and our job was they got a budget, and the idea and the goal was to go to Afghanistan, and we all got tasks and different to go to certain areas in Afghanistan to help them go out and coordinate with different organizations, but mainly different tribes to build roads, rebuild schools, and things of that nature. Our goal was to provide security for those Navy and Air Force elements.
I mean, we had some upper echelon. Later on, when we finally got to do our job, we really did have some upper echelon.
Right.
We watched out for some colonels and stuff like that. 24/7. Once we finally linked up, I mean, I was a driver and you were the gunner. Yeah, so we spent a lot of time together.
Exactly. And for the most part, we didn't kill each other.
No, we argue. Brothers argue.
Exactly. So we finished training at Fort Bragg. Now, you didn't meet us until in Afghanistan, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Somewhere in between that training, I got pushed over to you guys. Yes.
Okay. So you want to tell your version of actually when we landed? I remember, and there's other people on this.
Yes.
Pretty powerful. Do you want to share what your experience was when we landed in Bagram?
Larry and I were attached to you guys. Him and I were close because one night together. As we got off with you guys. But I remember the first sergeant, and we're like, "Yep." He said, "Okay, your mission, the mission that you trained for, you won't be doing. basically in a nutshell, he said, "Hey, who doesn't have combat badges?" And we're kind of looking at each other, and a few of us, me included, and a couple guys, because we had a lot of combat vets, yourself included. But myself, I didn't have a combat. And he said, "Take their names down." He said, "You all will see action." He said, "You are going to the Taika Valley." He said, you will see a combat." He said, "Some
And
of
that
you."
was and that first sergeant, as I spoke about before, and other guests on here on All Motion spoke about that first sergeant came up, as you said, and this is like where you could create a movie out of this, right? Don't you agree?
Oh, without a doubt.
He
Without a
basically
doubt.
came up and he told a colonel, that lieutenant colonel we trained at Fort Bragg from the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Sir, this is not coming from me. It's coming from a lot higher. These guys." And as you said, thank you for bringing that point up. He said these guys are going to God like Kapisa province. From this first sergeant, what was going through your mind when he said, y'all are going to receive a combat ribbon, or combat infantry badge if you never receive one, if you're infantry, and then a combat action badge if you don't serve in infantry MOS.
What was going through my head was, I mean, he said a lot more than just that.
Oh, I know. I was just kind of
He, he's like, some of you will not make it, and I just remember listening to what he said. I looked over to Larry, and Larry looked over to me like, what did we get ourselves into? Like, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. That's exactly what we said to each other. What do we like? Oh, this is gonna be fun. He did not pull any punches. Exactly what he said is exactly what happened.
and basically our mission there basically trained, and then as you remember they were ripping out the 82nd, and like I just said, the 101st was coming in. We had attachments, but we had no electricity when we at all. We didn't have generators at the time when we first went.
Uh-huh.
What do you
We
remember from that? What do you think?
guess on we first.
We had permanent, we had, they call them B huts, if you
Yes.
remember, and we each had like a little own. They're basically, how would you say they're built up? They're built like plywood in between to separate the
Oh yeah.
rooms, and then they're built pretty cheap, right? Like,
All you have to do is look at the picture you have up of me, and you that's it in a nutshell.
yeah, and we locked them with
With our little cheap locks,
yeah,
like that
somebody
made a difference.
literally somebody could take a ladder and jump over that thing. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
why it's pretty crazy. But since we had those, we'll go over a few things. But yeah, we go out, you, myself, and who else in our gun truck?
Sergeant Kern.
You, Sergeant Kern, and myself.
Yeah, yeah,
I just
yeah.
remember, yeah, but most of the time we were, no, we always had, and okay, so we go out there, we get everything established. Now you want to go over kind of like what Miles Fraser was like, and basically, we didn't have a lot of attachments. It was just us, and then I'm going to go into it.
Well, Morales Fraser was bare, empty.
Special forces unit that occupied it before we got there.
Yes. Location was actually a really good location, because if you wanted to come out of the valley, you had to go past our base, which is right there.
Yeah, we're outside of both Najab, Tagab, and then the valley down the road. We're near Kushba, the other fire base, which is down the road from where we were at.
Yes. So strategically, it was in a good spot. We had a mountain behind us, which we could get attacked from there, but periodically we just light up that mountain just because. And I think that kept them away from going up that mountain and trying to attack us from there because periodic. But
Do you remember our attachments? You want to go and speak about, if you remember? Remember we had our own talk, but it was all ran because there was only like 30, 40 of us, and we
yes,
had all our attachments. We were attached to the 101st Airborne Division, and all of our attachments were really cool guys. Some of them were in the talk, and then we had a captain that was he had a
yes,
Ranger tab, and he actually
yeah, he was a young guy. He was a nice. He was. I liked him. He was. If it wasn't for him, we really would have. When you're a National Guard and you're going out to do missions, they don't really give you everything you need. Sometimes you really got to fight for what you guys need, especially a mission that we had. Like it's not a mission that we're going out and like, hey, it's kissing babies and stuff like that. We were on a seek and destroy type mission, unfortunately, and we didn't have the necessary the stuff. They didn't provide us with.
well, I'm gonna go into it in a second, one of the medics that we got, and as you and I spoke before this about it, we didn't. Yeah, to your point, we didn't have. You remember we had a fuel bladder, or you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, stored our fuel. And when
Mm-hmm.
that got low, that would be an issue. We didn't have resupply all the time because only really helicopters. I mean, it just took forever to get out there. If you took a vehicle, you needed a helicopter to bring in supplies. Our mail came out from out there. I mean, we were out in the middle of nowhere, and that's why
Yes.
the
And it's dangerous just to bring
yeah,
that stuff to us.
it is dangerous. It's very dangerous because they were flying at levels where we were high up in the mountains at that point. Where someone could have took a shot with a rocket or RPG and took that helicopter down.
Yes. Yes.
Go as we spoke earlier. Episode. I'm sorry. Did you want to go? Yeah, I apologize. The attachments that we had. Did you
Mm.
remember? You want to speak about those and what we didn't have? We didn't have a cook. We didn't have mechanics. Things like that.
No. That's the beautiful thing about the National Guard is usually when you have National Guard, you have a mixture of people, mechanics, backyard mechanics. Most of us have jobs, as most of us have jobs outside the Guard. The Guards, we were lucky enough that we had a few guys that worked on vehicles and knew how to do a few things because I mean we had a flat I mean not only flat tires but we had a few things that happened and we didn't have the support to.
He did a great interview, and we did technically three interviews. But it was about his experience being a medic, combat medic, and then his interesting position from down at Kushba there to Morales Fraser to be one of our medics because they were seeing how much, and that's why it's really interesting. And this is what I want to ask you what your thoughts were. So as I listened to that part in that episode, he says they were down the road. There's another fire base that basically they were also doing missions in the valley next to us, and there they had a full company, which is about 110, 120 guys. He said after that there was word that you guys were special forces. You guys were walking around. You guys walk around in t-shirts and beards and sunglasses. So what do any comments to that?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely know some people thought we were special forces. I think in that type of environment, it's either fight or die. And you know, no matter what you think of the guy next to you, you know, everybody we were with fought. We didn't give up. If you hit us, we hit you harder. And we kept hitting you, and he kept hitting you, and kept hitting you, and kept hitting you. And that was what kept us alive. Not only that, we did a lot of things that, the Taliban knew who we were. I mean, we did stuff to our trucks to make sure they knew who we were.
Number 12, my duty to serve, Sergeant First Class retired Michael Orwig does an amazing job of breaking down the in fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. I wanted to see, when you heard that, because I went all the way up basically when they heard like these guys up the road were getting these firefights. They were like, "What? Who are these guys?" So it walks right into that initial, and just let the audience know from what you remember, because it was our squad, third squad. We had three
Mhm.
trucks, and you could talk about. You want to share about like our truck, what we had in terms of crew serve weapons.
I know what I liked. Our biggest one, I'm pretty sure on that firefight, we had the 50 cal.
We had the 50 cal, we had the 240 Bravo, and you were with
Oh,
me,
that's right.
and they got all pinned. There was like 68 guys that got pinned down, and then some other guys from another squad, and that's when
Yes.
that's the one
Yes, now
that.
I remember. They hit us on the radio and
Go ahead.
they said they were pinned, specifically, really, to you. I know they're talking to the other guys.
I was coordinating the efforts for I believe, yeah, it was second squad to come in and to give us ammo and to, basically help us out because we were
Oh, I
engaging.
do remember.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, they were basically they were. I believe it was Kern talking to you, and they basically walked you into where they were at.
Yeah, I was shifting fire, and then if you remember, you were on the ground and you helped me out you can't really speak on the radio. You were coordinate the other trucks to the gunners to coordinate shifting fire over top of them to lay
Yep.
suppressive fire so they could move.
Yep. And I think that after that first firefight, they knew, in my personal, I mean, as gunners, they knew you knew what you were doing. That's important. There was some, there's other guys in the other in guns that knew what they were doing as well. But that very first firefight, that solidified. Okay, we're getting a feel of who's who and what's what. Yeah.
We had Afghan National Army guys with us, and this guy actually got shot in the field. And
Yeah.
this individual ran out. He got shot in the ass again for saving this guy, but he got a silver star out of it. So I
Yeah.
like to share that because that's pretty cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
That was that firefight.
Yeah. We had the Afghan police. We'd be in the middle of a firefight and they're drinking coffee. Yeah, they were a lot of help.
Well, yeah, we're both Afghan National Army and then Afghan National Police. You know, we had worked with both of them, but yeah, mostly Afghan National Army. They were doing, if you remember, doing all kinds of other crazy stuff too. And I'm like, how? Jeez, man. I was like, oh my, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Oh
do.
my gosh, man, they were wild. But
Yes, they were.
it made it back. I want to touch on this. There was an individual. You talk about that before up until
Yeah,
what
that was
happened.
Jonathan Yellner, attached to.
He was part of
Yeah,
the Air Force.
good dude. I remember we went down to their fob. When we go to other fobs, our guys will go talk to set up the missions. Yellner, he was in the gym. And when I say the gym, it's just the outside with weights and stuff like that. So I went over there and we were hitting the weights and I saw him. I'm like, hey, what's up, buddy? He's like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, how's everything going? I said, good, good, good. He's like, hey, man, I'm getting ready to go home. I'm like, oh, yeah, you going on leave? He's like, yeah, yeah. My girl had a baby. I have a kid. I'm like, wow. I said, oh, congratulations. I said, man, you're lucky. I wish I could go home. Just shooting it up with him. Talked to him, lifted maybe hour and a half later. We left. I don't know if we found out on the way back or if we were back already. They were set up. He got killed.
Yeah, an IED went off. It didn't actually
Yeah.
the shrapnel. He actually the pressure basically hit it, and the seat it basically crushed him.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Yeah.
how he died.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. Yeah, we knew him, trained with him at Bragg. I remember he was in part of the Air
Yeah.
Force, PRT, but he somehow they put him out there as a driver.
I liked him. He had
Good guy. Yeah.
I liked the Air Force dudes because they were a lot more relaxed. Even though we were in a tight environment, they were relaxed. And it was nice to be around them just because it was intense out there. Sometimes you did.
I'm gonna throw a couple of these at you. Yeah, he was an amazing person, man. I'm gonna throw a couple of these at you as we wrap it up here shortly. But these are the ones that definitely want to touch on. There's a few. Get your thoughts. So this one, in my order, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
This one was where the Taliban would sometimes get in the middle of us, and we would start
Mhm.
shooting at each other.
Yeah.
If you remember, this night in particular, this is the Wadi when we had all these other gun trucks from the first 101st.
Yes.
There was like at
Yes.
least I want to say all our whole platoon was there. So that was like
Yes.
12 gun truck. And then we had the 101st and eventually we got air support. And you
Yes.
remember
Yes, we did.
I told our commander that the captain, remember he was in our truck with you and me and Sergeant Kern?
Uh-huh.
And bro, we were going through ammo. And if you remember that, that night, how it kicked off were me and a certain individual. It was, we got engaged first. The Taliban was in between us across the road because you remember we went online. Our second squad was already out there. You remember? This is
Mhm.
that night.
Yes.
This other individual and I engaged each other.
Mm.
And if you remember, we got on the radio and they're like, people, hey, people are yelling, screaming. And we didn't realize, but the Taliban literally got in between us and was shooting. You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So our goal was to get us to shoot back at that other squad that was already kind of in the
Hmm.
wadi. Do you remember that?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think you and some other, well, maybe it wasn't you, but some others knew that we were actually me and this other individual from second squad were shooting at each other, right? I mean, it's kind of funny, but it is. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's that craziness that you laugh at. You understand?
Yeah. Oh, was that
Yeah.
a duel? just to put this into perspective, I say this all the time. Like, remember, there's many times we'd be in the middle of a firefight just laughing, laughing, and laughing. And the only reason we were laughing at it was because, what are you going to do? Cry. That's the only thing we could do is cry. Like, these dudes are trying to kill us. So we'd laugh. I mean, what else could you do? But laugh. Like, that or cry. And we weren't crying, so you might as well laugh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, seriously, it's funny. It is. Personally, I literally thought, I was like, man, if we don't get these Apaches in here soon, man, this is not going to remember. You remember that
Huh?
feeling when those Apaches came in?
Oh, yes, I remember. Get inside your vehicles. Do not come outside your vehicles. He said, "We are going to kill everything that everything that's outside your vehicles." And they lit it up. I just remember laughing like a little kid inside. I'm like, "Oh my God," because they lit it up.
How long?
They
I mean,
say,
we exfilled with them. Do you remember? We left. We
yes,
exfilled that when we are done with that. When I was all done, said and done. I mean, how many rounds do you think? I mean, I know Kern got out, to coordinate, and I know you stayed in the vehicle. I know you might have got out because you used to help me. This is crazy for people that don't know this. You're an awesome person, man. Because I remember when we, another podcast did a perfect example of this. The first scariest or the most deadliest engagement is those first 5 seconds, those first rounds of that IED or mortars. When you say, because once you get past that, you can get locked on target, right? Sometimes if it was safe enough, you get out and you hand the ammo.
of course,
I want to say
of
thank you for that
course.
because that was
Oh,
clutch.
yeah. Well,
You
I'm
want
of
to tell,
course.
you want to let the audience know, like how, if you remember, how many rounds you think we went through in that night?
Oh, Jesus. I'd have to say thousands around because I'd have to say thousands of rounds because we kept our trucks. We
I mean, I think I looked it up. Like each box of 50 cal ammo weighs like 30, 40 pounds.
yes, and
And
we
we had at least 12 boxes in there. When you say at least,
at
because remember,
least
we put some in the back, if you remember, in
yes,
the trunk.
yes,
Because
yes,
you organize a truck, remember?
yes. I wanted to make sure we like listen. I didn't want to die not because we didn't have weapons. Like I want to make. I'd rather get to where we got to go to slowly, but at least we had enough ammunition to fight
I,
for.
I want to say thank you for that, man. Seriously.
Of course. I mean, we're a team. We literally fought for hours and hours and hours. And I mean, I don't think we came close to running out, very, very close, but we never truly ran out. Like, and as soon as we're
Yeah,
done
we
with
had good
firefight,
gunners though, man. We had good gunners within the not just everybody out there everybody that was a gunner, and there was a few, but they were really good. In our own squad, and then we had guys on the ground, and
yes,
we our platoon, man. We had a lot of. I told you I was recently speaking to my platoon sergeant when I first went to Iraq, my first deployment. Crazy, man. He's like, and I asked him about, what do you think about our platoon? He's like, man, you guys were spot on. You guys were on point, But to your point, I mean, we really had, to his point, I had a lot of experience, combat experience within our whole platoon.
yes. You're like someone like you, when you had two combat experiences, you had a lot of guys, at least one or more.
Yep.
That was my first. I know there was a couple guys that was their first. Heck of a way to bring in for your first one.
So we end with that, and I think that was crazy. I really felt like we weren't going to make it back. Some of us
No,
on that one for sure. We got a
no,
bunch of guys that came out with Purple Hearts out of that.
yeah,
Fortunately, I don't think nobody died. These got purple
no,
guys. Got
no,
those got
nobody died that was directly with us. Yeah, that was by far that was a heck of a. I honestly didn't think we were going to make it that night. The best feeling in the world was when they came. They told us, like I said, they told us to get in the vehicles and don't get out of the vehicles, and they just lit up all around. And thank God they did because they were
yeah, we
closer to us
yes, they
than
were.
we knew.
They were not within 150 to 100 meters, bro. That's how close
Yeah.
they were. They were like right outside.
And a
And
wadi, tell them what a wadi is because we're
Wadi, sure, yeah. Wadi basically is a basically a dried up, yeah, a creek bed, or it's probably usually a creek, but a river bed, and we had to be careful because you remember we popped the tire off there a lot one
yeah.
drop. So I mean, if you want, so it's a dried up creek or riverbed. That's what a wadi is.
Oh,
But
just
yeah, the
rotten up.
Apache. I remember I told that captain did really well, man, bringing those Apaches in, right?
Yes, he did. He walked him right in. again, I think they saved our lives that day.
But I spoke to someone actually, and they said, "Yeah, it's not your fault." But I felt really bad, man. I wasn't there, and I want to. It's kind of funny because what I'm about to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So we got the opportunity. We got an opportunity, and we didn't have which is good. Good, that helped out with
Morale.
motivation, morale. Thank you, motivation. Do you remember went on past for 4 or 5 days in Qatar? I went there, found out a day later, you guys have been ambushed between outside all the valleys between Maras, Fraser, and Kushba. What happened initially, and again, I apologize, man. It messes me up that I wasn't there. But what happened to cause that? What happened that you remember from that ambush?
Well, I'll start it off like this. I'm going to say this just for your audience. Our main mission was just to go out there and set up and let the Taliban set up on us and then fight. We allowed them to set up on us and then we fought. That was our mission. So, with that being said, it was just another mission. We went out there, let them set up on us. Unfortunately, that day you weren't there. When you take it's like and I'm going to use this analogy. It's like taking a key player off the football team. Like this is a player. You need this guy. You need this guy. He knows what he needs to do. He knows what needs to happen. And it's not to take anything away from the person that was tried to fill your shoes that day. It's just that it's not something that he did. This isn't this is, I think this was his first deployment, but not only that just wasn't his job. So we took a lot of contact that day. I
Now,
think
was it initially when you remember getting shot at? Was it initially small arms fire, or was it that's all it was? Was it RPGs or just that?
no,
Okay.
it was small arms, and it was an array of stuff. It was an array of stuff.
But there, you guys didn't get blown up by an idea, from what I was told,
No,
right?
no, 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 no. We didn't get no,
So
no,
you
we didn't.
basically, and you guys weren't there that long because two guys in our squad got hit, correct?
A shot, yeah. So we had to get out of there.
Would you say you guys were there? Because again, I wasn't there. You say you guys were there for about maybe 30 minutes because you guys
we
weren't
were
there
there
that
for
long.
no, we were there for a while. I'm not gonna say we were there like
But you
shortly,
didn't.
but
But you didn't get QRF though. No one came in to support. You guys just took those casualties, not casualties. You guys
and
took some wounded, and you got to get out of there, right?
we had to get out of town. Yeah. So two guys get shot. We have a gunner that's new to gunning.
That happened. Okay.
We got ambushed every night we went out. It didn't make a difference.
Right.
He froze. He froze. He was so. If we're taking fire, what's the first thing we do as a squad if we're taking fire?
Definitely. Suppression. Get on the radio and definitely and yeah, let people know what's going on.
Exactly. So that day, I guess we took a lot of small on fire, and you start thinking about stuff. Maybe he's thinking about his wife, his kids. I don't know, and he froze for a minute. He definitely froze, and that's not the time to freeze when we're taking, because if you don't suppress their fire, they get bolder and they get closer and they get bolder and they get closer. If you don't fight back, it's dangerous. Guys get shot. You can't sit there. Nobody got extremely hurt, but still,
I
it
heard
was.
that, and I told you how I felt. I felt really bad. I wasn't there, and I felt really.
It's that's you know what, it has nothing to do with.
Yourself, not you so much, but Son Kern got a little upset that I was gone.
Listen, you might have got upset that you're gone, but regardless of the matter, like we spent too much time there.
Okay, this night the sun was setting, and I remember it was we were just we were on top of this other valley, but we could overlook down into Tagada.
Oh yeah, we're the
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
telephone. Okay, yes,
So if you remember this first squad, okay, we had three squads. There was a squad, first squad that was leaving, and we were on top of a mountain. It was me and another gunner because we our first squad
yeah.
exfil actually leaving the valley. Right, everything went well. They didn't have any gear. They were just doing
We just got their backs. That's all.
So do you remember what happened? What'd you say? We're about 1,500 feet up, something like that.
Yeah.
We're looking down as they're leaving exfil and finishing their mission. They get start shot, and RPG gets fired and hits one of the vehicles.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember? There was an area of it was a Taliban that basically didn't know where we were, and these guys, our first squad got shot up and they got hit by an RPG. Luckily, no one got seriously hurt or injured or died,
Mhm.
but they got hit. And you remember me and another gunner. It was a group of obviously people. We basically saw where that fire was coming from, and we
Yeah, and
engaged.
you just unloaded. You just yeah, you just. I mean, that's not different than any other tick. We were just lucky we were at the advantage point where we were, and that you caught it. You caught where it came from.
Exactly.
Um,
We were
um,
me and the other gunner.
without a doubt.
You gotta be spot on. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
experience, a little bit of luck, but I mean, you're see. You remember too when we're up there, we're up there for hours at a time. So, we're talking like it's casual, but we're sitting up there for 2, 3 hours. You're trying to be on point, but it's tough when you're up there for hours at a time. We were on point. You were on point. We did catch where it came from. You lit them up. I mean, you guys lit them up.
Being a driver, what was that experience like for you?
It's an experience that I'll never forget. Like I said before going into it, it's like, you know what, it's gonna be my last ride. I might as well do it. I did not know exactly what I was getting into. Something I'll never forget ever, because there's people that will never see some of the things that we saw. You know what? There's many times in my life where sometimes you get high on your high horse, and then I think back of the things that I saw in Afghanistan and how poor the people are and stuff like that, and then it humbles me. It brings me back to humility, like get on my high horse. Oh, I don't have this or I don't have that. And then, you know what, everything's just materialistic. Like when you go to a place like that and you see how they live, and we're living barely, it made me appreciate life a lot more for the simple things. A lot of people need to see how they live, to see how very simple. Like, remember that firefight you were just talking about, we were next to telephone towers. Those towers go off at like 11 o'clock. The Taliban will not allow the use of phones after a certain time. We as Americans, we're very, very, very lucky with everything we have. And I just think more people should see other countries, especially Afghanistan, because I believe it's probably one of the poorest in the world.
No, absolutely. I want to touch on a couple. Is all emotion we found about mental health. I want to touch on a couple of things. Do you think, in your opinion, all of us, just looking at our platoon, do you think you have to experience some type of trauma before being in that type of environment we were before we actually all that some of the big ones we just talked about?
You know what? I have the same type of question for you. You being prior, I mean, you had experience before you went into Afghanistan. The adrenaline, the firefights lasted what, 7 hours, sometimes 6 hours, and that whole time your adrenaline's going. How do you feel outside of that? You don't get that rush like you did.
A war junkie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is that rush that you get, and I definitely, could answer you by saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what guys that it's like that experience. Like, oh my god, I made it through that. Like, can I make it through another one? You know what I mean? Like, kind of like that. And I was around, from Iraq. My first deployment, I was around some very, 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 I was around operators that basically worked at a very high, they're they could deal with a lot at one time, right? And so we had to perform on that level. Now, granted, I never saw in my first deployment, I was in combat, but never to the extent that we got in my personal experience that we got into. Now, our guys that when I went back to Iraq to experience combat, like
Mm-hmm.
worse. I'm not saying worse, but you know, it, for me personally, it was crazy. With the experience in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were right there though, so it wasn't just like just because I mean we're I want to make sure the audience and everybody who listens to this, it was not just me or the other. It was all, even within the other squads. I mean, we had really good to be really honest, not just the teams, but when I called on QRF, you remember that first firefight, I was
Mm-hmm.
coordinating with the squad leader of second squad to bring him online and told him exactly what was happening, what we needed when they came out there and basically with our QRF to support our guys that were getting pinned down. You know what I mean?
you know, this is not a football game. Like we can't drop the ball here. If we drop the ball there, that could mean somebody's life. So
100%,
I
100%.
think that everybody stayed on their P's and Q's and knew they had to be on point, because if they didn't, that could be either your life or your partner's life. And that's why we left. For the most part, we left. At least no one died in our immediate people we came with. I mean, a lot of people died around us. Um, there's nothing we can do about that, but we took we took our jobs very seriously, and we fought like it, and when it was time to get down and dirty, we did. And I think that's what
Alive.
kept us alive.
So lastly, and then one more after this is, so fast forward, we were out at Rouse Fraser. We had some Marines that came and worked with us, and their job, if you
Mhm.
remember, their job, their job.
Yes,
We're not laughing at what happened. We're laughing at because it's a
they're
lot of
crazy.
no, not them, but just like they should never have been out there. But like
No.
what happened, and everybody knows this. We already spoke about it, but the audience and so this gentleman I worked with, because if you remember, Kern, he had gone to Qatar. Okay, so I filled in as team leader, right? And that day, I remember this man, and the gentleman's name's Captain Melton, and their job was there was a Marine and there was a corpsman, and their job there's three of them to train the Afghan National Army, and there's a lot of things that fall through, unfortunately. But their job was to train them, and we were, as we this was like 5 6 months in, us already being there almost, right? And we were rotating out. We weren't all out there, and if you remember, our squad, and I know there's other parts of the platoon, were back at Bagram, and you and I remember we're working out, right? I think we had a radio or something, but back at where the gym, we had a decent gym there, right? Back at Bar. And
We
we had
did.
a so I remember you and I were working out and someone came and got us. And do you remember I mean, for me initially I thought, something really bad happened, like one of our squads or somebody that, you know what I mean, got like our organic platoon. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's what were you thinking when they came and running and they got us?
Here we go again. I mean, all right. I
Yeah.
mean,
And what
you know,
happened was, yeah. Do you remember? Do you want me to go over it? Do you remember what happened?
you mean when
Yeah, when
the
they got
Marine?
hit. Yeah, they got hit by an IED.
Yeah. Well, number one, they they didn't have enough support as well. They it's not like they had enough. That's why they hooked up with us. But let me rack my brain here. Help me.
They basically and and made these three rest in peace. Captain Jesse Melton the third, in the United States Marine Corps. First Lieutenant Nicholas A. Madrazo, United States Marine Corps, and Corpsman Strickland, in the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
Uh, they all they all were got killed in an IED strike down a road. Now this is why it's important. A road that we went down a good 2 3 months before they really came, and they did a different mission.
Yeah.
And we don't know, we're not going to get into why or shouldn't they or they should have more support. But basically, they got hit and they all got killed. And then later, a week or a couple of days later, we got asked. And this was like I was looking at myself like, man, I should probably be in this casket. We were asked by their command major lieutenant colonel,
Walking
basically,
down.
can you walk on these casket outs and put them on the C-17 to the final resting place, which is
Yeah.
back home in the states. So
So okay, so that that was we were when that happened, we were actually working for the PRT, right? Correct? We weren't out there anymore. We were working now
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
took us out.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly,
So
exactly. Yeah,
so
we weren't still
what
going out
okay.
there, but we were rotating.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yes. Yes. So what happened was they took us out. Now they took us out. So we're really more at Bagram. They have they have the French Foreign Legion, they have the Marines, they have a lot of other people back there, but we are we're out. We are really working for background. Now we're actually doing the job we came to do. What happened is that the Taliban finally figured out that if they blow us up from underneath, that you know the trucks are were done, and you know we're lucky that they didn't figure that out to the very end when we were already on our way out. Because had they figured that out a lot sooner, we wouldn't have made it because we got blown up from the side a couple of times, and it might knock you silly, but it's not going to kill you. But if that's why they had to move the MRAPs because the MRAPs could take a hit from underneath. Um, the Humvees with all the up armored Humvees, they could not take that, and that's what happened. I believe that's exactly what happened. Sad.
Yeah, no, it's sad, man. I was just like, wow, man. Somehow I looked down, I was like, there's a sign, you know what I mean? To
You
be that close and to actually put their caskets on a plane, that was different, man. Different.
you remember when the French, not the French Foreign Legion, but the Foreign Legion, they could fight,
Correct,
but the
correct,
French,
correct. Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
there's a big difference. A lot of people don't understand the difference between French and French Foreign Legion. French Foreign Legions are usually people from other countries that want to be French. So they make them go into the French Foreign Legion first. After they're done with their tour, after they're done with that, then they can become citizens. They fight. The French, what do we have? 40 people in our, um,
Yeah, we had about 30, 35
yeah.
in our platoon. Yeah.
When we left, the French took over for us. And they had, what do you want to say, 200? They had, they had,
Yeah, they got
they had
yeah.
everything they need.
But we
And
were
do you
closer.
believe,
We were closer with the French Foreign Legion. Like
oh, without doubt.
we got into
And
stuff
do
with we
you,
got into ticks with them and stuff like
oh,
that.
yeah. They showed us the ropes. They're like, yeah, let's go. Let's get it in. And then the Marines got in with us. Like, yeah, we loved each other because we fought. There was no, we fought. It's either die or kill or be killed, and we fought. But you remember the French came in with all the people they had, and they were asking us to help them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely, it's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, man. No, we're gonna finish it out here, man. I just want to thank you for your time, and lastly, as we touch on it, um, no, I appreciate it. We can keep going, man. But this has been amazing, and we're gonna do a follow up here. But um, just want to talk to you about, a little bit about your own personal, experience, mental health, and then, what can guys do? So two-part question, what your thoughts are and coming back from that. And then, guys that are out there, men and women and men that are still struggling. What's your thoughts about PTSD and other, mental health issues from something as traumatic as you and I and the rest of our platoon went through?
That's a tough question because coming out of a place like that, you definitely need to decompress. You definitely need to, uh, and everybody that does in their own way, decompress or relax. Uh, what was funny for me was coming home and then going into a prison. And I'll tell you,
No,
I remember.
we'll get into the prison part. Actually,
Okay,
I just
because
want to,
I'm
yeah.
going to tell you, just to tell you real quick here, some of the inmates that when I first got home, and listen, I've been working 20 years, so I talk to these inmates like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Like, and the guys would tell me, man, dude, when you first came back, like I didn't know it, but when they told me when I first came back, I was like on a hair trigger, like just waiting for something to happen. Like they said, you were shot out for a minute. Like I shot out, and I just kind of laughed because you don't. I didn't know it, but of course, inmates in a prison facility, they observe and they see. They they're very observant. Very very observant. So it's just kind of funny to hear them say that. Um,
You know, so,
yeah.
and lastly, what do you think? You know, people that are struggling with mental health, in your opinion, what can they do? You know, especially veterans, combat veterans that are struggling.
Of course, seek help. Um, you know, I know the VA wants to push you to do like classes and stuff like that, but a lot of men, myself included, no, we don't want to speak in front of people. Like, who wants to speak in front of people? Like, I don't, you know. But if you're going through it, you definitely need to find either someone to speak to. It may be a professional or just someone
Something
like
like
you.
this platform. People
Bad
can
about it.
listen to this episode and all the episodes we do on All Motion. You know.
Yep.
So again,
Yep.
man, there's anything before we close out, and then we'll follow up with you. Do the next one real quick. Anything lastly you would like to say? People can follow us and follow this podcast. People can follow your people allowed to follow you. You want to give your information if people want to follow you on Facebook. I don't know if you're on Instagram or not.
Oh, I'm an old man. I'm barely. I mean, I'm on Facebook, but no, man. I follow you. That's if anything.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But yeah, lastly, anything you again, things you want to again, if you go on allmotionpodcast.com, follow all of us on the website there. This has been an amazing episode. Anything you want to say final? Anything you
Hey,
want to
God
close
bless
out?
and God bless America. That's what I gotta say. Say a prayer for all those men and women because there's still men and women out there in harm's way. God bless America.
Thank you again, Donald, for stopping by All Motion. We appreciate you, sir. If you have not done so already, please make sure to check out allmotionpodcast.com, where you'll find this episode and all of our amazing episodes. This is Jake from All Motion. Take care and be safe.